Hi there guys, it's David here from We Make Models, and in today's video I want to show you how I made this wearable Daredevil helmet from Daredevil Born Again. The file I'm printing today is available on Do3D's website. I'll include a link in the description box below. Before committing to a print that would take almost 3 days, I decided to create a test ring using Slicer, which makes sure the helmet would fit me, and saves a lot of time, materials and electricity if it doesn't. I achieved this by cutting out the widest brow section on the helmet and printing it on my Elegoo Neptune 3 Plus. Now, this test ring was a bit too small, so I knew I had to upscale the full helmet to 102.5% on Orca Slicer. This has been my longest 3D print so far, taking a total of 59 hours and 42 minutes. I know that's pretty amateur compared to other prints that run for almost a week, but up until then, my longest prints had been around 12 hours tops. You can actually see one of the support pieces for the horn broke off. I waited until the nozzle was at the other side of the print and added some blue tack, which I levelled off to the current layer of the print. When the nozzle came back around, it printed on top of the blue tack, continuing the support piece below the horn. It was then time to remove the support pieces from the helmet. The thing I really like about using Orca Slicer is how easily the supports separate from the printed model. Some might say too easily, considering the support for the horn broke off during printing. I did a quick test fit to make sure I could wear this thing, and thankfully it did fit, though I really could have scaled it up to 105% for a little extra room. I was super impressed by the print quality from my Elegoo Neptune 3 Plus, and you can see the fabric texture on the helmet, which turned out beautifully. There was the tiniest bit of stringing fuzz on the model, but I just removed this with some sandpaper and also sanded down the edges. I probably could have gotten away without using any wood filler on the helmet, but there were some slight layer lines on the smooth horn sections and edges of the model, so I decided to do one coat of filler. And yes, I know this looks gross, but if you're using white coloured filament, you're better using a darker wood filler. If you're using a dark filament, you're better using a white filler to see which areas you've already covered. Once the filler had dried, I sanded it back before printing the backplate of the helmet. The backplate took almost 11 hours to print, which was nothing compared to the 60 hours for the main helmet. As you can see here, this section behind the left ear unfortunately snapped off. This was due to my print settings and not an issue with the 3D file itself. Thankfully, I was able to reattach it with super glue and a soldering iron, but I wanted to reinforce the plastic to stop this from happening again. To achieve this, I used fiberglass resin and matting. I bought this small fiberglass repair kit online and took the pieces outside to apply it. You can see me here mixing a small cup of resin with the curing solution. This cured within the space of an hour, so you do need to work quickly with it. Once I had applied a coat of the resin itself to the inside of the helmet, I added some of the matting to the top and sides of the helmet, being sure to cover the area which had previously snapped off. I also repeated this process on the back plate as well. I do need to mention that fiberglass is pretty nasty stuff, due to the fumes from the resin and the matting itself being made up of tiny glass fibres, both of which you don't want in your lungs. So although you can't see it, the entire time I worked with this stuff, I was wearing a respirator along with gloves. I gave the fiberglass 24 hours to make sure it was completely dry. I then cut the overlapping sections away from the ears and sanded down any jagged edges with sandpaper. Again, I wore a respirator and gloves and vacuumed the area where I did this straight away. You have the option to print the eye sockets separately on this model, which then attach to the helmet with tiny magnets. I attempted this originally on my FDM printer, but I wasn't happy with the smoothness of them, so I decided to reprint them in resin. Before doing this, I also wanted a Daredevil Born Again logo to display along with the finished project, so I found a really nice one on Cults 3D, and I'll include a link in the description box below. I arranged the new eye sockets in the Cheeto Box resin slicer along with the logo and lenses. There are two types of lenses included in this file, a solid one and one with tiny pinpoint holes which is easier to see through. I printed these pieces on my Elegoo Saturn 8K resin printer using Elegoo's water washable red resin. Once the pieces had printed, I washed them with water and waited 24 hours for them to dry before placing them in the curing station for the final cure. Here, you can see the rough FDM eye on the right compared to the much smoother resin eye on the left. With all the pieces printed, it was time to start assembly and painting. I had to glue in a lot of magnets to attach the backplate and the eyes to the main helmet. The magnets for the eyes were tiny, so I didn't bother to film that, but as you can imagine, it was a somewhat tedious process. Once the magnets were glued in, I took all the pieces outside for a coat of grey primer paint. For all the painting you're about to see, I gave each coat 24 hours to dry before flipping the piece over and coating the other side. For the main red colours, I bought 2 different shades of metallic red from Halfords here in the UK. I used the darker shade for the horn sections and eye sockets. Again, once I had completed the first coat on the eyes, I flipped them over once they had dried and coated the other side. After masking off the horn sections, I applied the lighter coat of red to the rest of the helmet and the backplate. In case you're wondering, I did also paint the inside of the helmet red, so it was all one uniform colour. For the black sections, I just used acrylic paint and a brush. If you've watched my previous videos, you'll know I'm not the neatest painter, so I took a cotton bud dipped in water to clean up any lines I had went over. This removes the black acrylic paint, while leaving the red spray paint intact underneath. Now, I never recommend using any spray paint indoors, but thanks to the beautiful Scottish summer that decided to rain 24/7 during the last week of this project, I had to do the final gloss clear coat in my shower. Luckily, my bathroom window can open wide for airflow, and I also used a respirator so I didn't pass out on the floor. Then, it was finally time to bring everything together. As you can see, the backplate easily attaches to the main helmet with magnets. I put the solid lenses into the resin eye sockets. The reason for this is the solid lenses are impossible to see through, but will look better when the helmet is on display. I put the pinpoint hole lenses into the FDM eyes I printed first. The video doesn't do it justice, but you can clearly see out of these lenses. Finally, here's the finished product being modelled by yours truly. Now, I've not made a wearable helmet in quite some time, so I'm really happy with how this one turned out. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more projects like this in the future, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And as always, thank you for watching.